I used to think the first sign of a failing system was noise fans, screaming, logs spitting red, alarms tripping in a cascade that tells you exactly which server is about to catch fire. My work in networks has trained me to listen for it. In marriage, the alarms whisper. A phone flipped face down on the table, a new, "we're just grabbing a bite," that used to be, "I'll be home in 15." A perfume. Amber never wore to dinner that starts showing up on Tuesdays, which used to be laundry night. We'd been in Dallas 8 years, Amber and me. I'm in network engineering for a healthcare company just off 75. She's an HR coordinator for a logistics firm near the airport. We met at a Rangers game we were both pretending to care about, each dragged there by friends who thought they were doing us a favor. She liked that I didn't talk over her. I liked that she laughed with her whole face. We built something ordinary and solid, a two-bedroom in Oaklawn with a balcony that catches the evening heat like a skillet, a shared calendar for dentist appointments and birthdays, a rotation of tacos, pho, and whatever pop-up barbecue our friends text about. It wasn't thrilling. It didn't need to be. You don't see the day a system starts to drift. You feel it. In August, Amber's calendar filled up with new rectangles, AP check-in, debrief, field team sync, always after 5, always running long. She'd never loved overtime. She used to keep HR boundaries the way I keep subnets tidy, strictly, because messy makes you bleed later. But suddenly there were after-hours things that didn't come with comp time. I teased her about becoming a workaholic. She smiled like someone keeping a glass from tipping. "It's seasonal," she said. "Peak shipping." "We're onboarding temps." Her tone asked me to stop poking holes in a story that couldn't bear more weight. The first objective flag wasn't a feeling, it was data. Amber and I share a couple of accounts out of laziness more than romance. One is the joint Visa we put groceries and dinners on. One night, I pulled the statement up to check whether we'd finally canceled a streaming service we never use. A handful of charges I couldn't reconcile sat in the list like stones in soup. Courtyard Addison, 148.76. Hyatt House Las Colinas, 148.7, 6 tiny dollars, 5 errors. 1-1, both on weeknights when she'd said she was staying late training supervisors. Both within 6 miles of her office and our apartment. It wasn't the numbers. It was the pattern. Same range, same time of the month, the way bad actors test a door at a different hour just to see if anyone's watching. I stared at the screen long enough for my laptop to dim. Everything I know about troubleshooting told me not to jump to root cause just because my gut filled in the blanks, so I made myself be a network guy about it. No hacking, no snooping through locked phones, no stalking. You don't brick the system to find the loose cable. You start with what you're authorized to touch. I went to the source that's fed us for years, the calendar we share because we once thought being a team was cute. The new after-hours blocks looked careful. The titles weren't dinner or drink. They were worky, the kind of phrases HR people use when they want to keep specifics in the room. AP check-in, handoff, post-mortem. They were recurring on alternating Thursdays, 6,000 to 8,030. Amber's invites usually came with notes and attachments, agendas, slides. These were blank. Who was? AP. Not accounts payable. She uses AP to mean assistant plant manager. Sometimes the title for field supervisors in their world. I clicked one event and saw the invite had been created from her corporate email, sent to one recipient whose address wasn't visible because she'd invited them as private. Not unusual if you handle sensitive issues. Unusual for half the month. Then Uber showed up as an uninvited witness. We each have personal accounts, but when I got promoted last year, we tied the cards to the same auto pay to get travel points. My receipts go to my work email, her receipts go to hers. Except that sometimes, as a helpful feature, Uber sends summaries to the primary cardholder. The Thursday after I saw the Courtyard charge, an Uber email pinged my inbox. Your trip from Logistics, HQ to the Pearl at Midway, $21, $21.18. The Pearl at Midway is an apartment complex, newish, with a pool in every marketing photo. 10 minutes later, another receipt. Your trip from the Pearl at Midway to Hyatt House Las Colinas. The times lined up with her blank calendar block like teeth in a gear. I gave myself 12 hours to be wrong. That was the rule. 12 hours of benefit of the doubt, of maybe she was helping a coworker who couldn't drive. Maybe she was training staff off-site because the conference room was booked. Maybe she took someone to a hotel because the break room was full? I woke at 3:02 a.m., watched the ceiling fan parse the dark into 4 stubborn pieces, and knew the truth before I knew what to do with it. I didn't confront her the next morning. The advice you get when your life catches fire on the internet is always to go nuclear in under 10 minutes and film the smoke. I know too much about logs to do that. Evidence mishandled is gossip. Evidence handled is a mirror. On Saturday, while she took a Pilates class and brunched with a friend, I did a boring, careful thing. I printed the Visa line items, the Uber summaries, the calendar screenshot. I made a folder like I was building a change request, dates, times, business tone labels. Then I went to her company's website, not the public one with the smiling forklift driver and clip art hard hats, but the careers page that links to the employee handbook. You can find anything if you know how to read URLs. 3 clicks and 1 guess at assetsnshtisu and ht3 assetsnht3 and ht3.hdc. Section 4.2, Relationships and Conflicts of Interest. HR. Fluent language wrapped a clear idea. Employees working in or with the Human Resources Department must disclose relationships with any employee they support and must not be assigned to handle matters involving a partner or family member. Finance signs these. Legal signs these. People treat them like mattresses. Everyone has one. No one reads the tag until there's a fire. I printed Section 4.2 and highlighted it. Then I stopped, because this wasn't only about policy, it was about us. Amber came home glowing from mimosas and gossip. She flopped onto the couch like a cat falling off a fence and grinned up at me. "What's that face?" she said, half a challenge, half a plea. "Just thinking about next week's change window," I said, which was true enough to not feel like a lie and false enough to make my mouth sour. She put one foot into my lap and kneaded my thigh with her toes the way she does when she wants to soften me up for a busy week and a quiet weekend. "Can we do pho tonight? I'm craving basil." "Sure," I said. "Pho is good." If you're waiting for a screaming match, you'll be disappointed. You won't get a plaintive, just a kiss, or a sister showing up with a box of wine. If I've learned anything about failure, it's that the showy part happens to make you feel like you're doing something while the real damage happens in silence. I don't do shows, I do plans. Monday at lunch, I sat in my car with the AC blasting and Googled Dallas divorce mediation private attorney. A name came up more than once, Rebecca Sloan, board certified, reviews that sounded like literate humans wrote them. Her office was near Turtle Creek in a building that smelled like money and lemon oil. She looked like every no-nonsense person I've ever trusted in a server room at 2 a.m. Simple hair, no interest in your drama, eyes like scalpel steel. "I'm not here to punish," I said, the moment the door clicked shut. "I'm here to leave without burning my career or hers, and without putting our friends in a body cam episode." "Good," she said. "Punishing is expensive and unreliable. Texas is no fault. We can file on insupportability. Infidelity can be relevant in property division, but only if you want to litigate, and we can put terms in a mediated settlement that make a fight unnecessary." She spoke like she'd turned the page on a policy enough times to memorize it. "You'll want to separate finances now in case she reacts unpredictably. Open a checking account in your name. Move your direct deposit. Don't zero out the joint account. Judges hate that. You have no kids?" I shook my head. "Then we can keep this contained." Contained was the word I needed. Containment keeps bad flames from finding new fuel. "There's also her job," I said. "She's HR. If she's seeing a supervisor she's supporting, that implicates their policy." "I won't touch her job," Rebecca said. "That's between her and her employer. But if you're going to alert them, do it clean. No adjectives, only dates, times, and references to policy. Use the hotline. Anonymous is fine. If you can bear it, wait until our first mediation session is scheduled. It gives everyone a dignified path." "What about telling her?" I asked. My breaths had gone shallow, like I was trying not to trip on my own air. "You can tell her whenever you're ready," she said. "I'd tell her soon. I know. I'm not fighting you. I'm choosing mediation. In my experience, the people who burn you don't expect that much mercy. It unsettles them into cooperation." She slid a printed checklist across the desk like I'd asked her to sign for a package. "Open account, change deposit, pull 3 months of statements, stop paying her subscriptions automatically, lease a place if you can afford both temporarily." I looked down at my hands and realized I'd scraped a hangnail until it bled. Rebecca handed me a tissue and didn't stare at the blood and didn't offer a metaphor for it. I felt seen in a way that wasn't pity. I found a 1-bedroom in a nondescript building in Las Colinas, furnished enough to hold a person and their indecision. It was 15 minutes from my office, 20 from the apartment, and anonymous. I signed a short-term lease and told myself it was a disaster recovery site, not a retreat. I moved a box at a time in the evenings while Amber answered texts on the couch and posted an Insta story of a wine glass no one who knows us would identify. The conversation, when I finally had it, was a Tuesday. It had rained all afternoon, that southern rain that doesn't know whether it wants to end or begin. Amber was at the dining table with her work laptop and a half-drunk cinnamon cold brew she only orders when she's stressed and wants to pretend it's a treat. I put my phone face up on the table between us and sat. She looked at the phone like it was evidence, which made me hate my job for making me this predictable. "What's up?" she said. "I'm going to say something," I said, "and you can ask me how I know after if you want, or not. You can also walk to the bedroom and start packing a bag if you want. Whatever choice you make after I say it is yours." She lifted her chin in a way I'd once seen as confidence. Now, it looked like a brace. "Okay. I know about you and whoever you've been seeing after work," I said. "I don't need names. I have dates and places. I also have your company's policy printed out. I'm not here to have the kind of fight people film. I've retained a mediator. I'm going to move out for a while. I'm not going to cut you off financially. And I'm going to send your compliance hotline a short, factual report because it's not my job to decide whether you get to handle other people's HR if you're in a relationship with someone you support." She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she didn't confess, which would have felt too much like a script we both could hide inside. She sat very still. When people say still, they mean quiet. I mean still like the moments before a system reboots and everything is briefly, eerily under control. "You're going to ruin me," she said. Her voice was a clean blade. It had cut other people and she knew how sharp it was. "I'm going to let the facts talk," I said. "You and I both know facts aren't ruin. Behavior is. I'm not your enemy. I'm just done being your co-author." She brought her hands to her face and pressed her fingers into her eyelids like she could keep her pupils from dilating. "It's not what you think," she said. "The line's so universal, they should put it on a t-shirt for sale in the lobby." "I don't think it's romance," I said. "I think it's proximity, adrenaline, and plausible deniability. I think it's you not wanting to feel like the person enforcing policy has to live under it. And I think it's me being tired of feeling like an appliance that keeps your life cold enough to store what you don't want to look at yet." That got a flinch. The smallest one, the kind only the person who's watched your face sleep will notice. "His name is Trevor," she said, as if saying it made the mess neater. "He's not in my chain. I was helping his team with an investigation and it got blurred." "Blurred lines always look straight to the person holding the marker," I said, and hated how rehearsed that sounded. "Is he married?" She laughed once, humorless. "Separated," she said, "the modern talisman that people hold up to make their decisions anointed. It doesn't matter, you've already decided." "I've decided to leave gently," I said. "That's what I've decided." Her laugh broke then. "Gently," she said, and there it was, contempt framed as a compliment. "You always choose the calmest version of destroying someone. It's your talent." "I would rather be boring and kind than thrilling and cruel," I said. "We chose different paths." We sat in that ugly silence that belongs in bad breakup songs and empty offices. Then she said, "What do you need from me right now?" "I need you to listen," I said. "I'll be out by Friday. Rebecca Sloan will reach out to propose mediation dates. You can hire whoever you want. I won't fight you on furniture or on who pays for what between now and then. Don't advertise this to our friends like it's a debate. If anyone needs a story, tell them it's private, and it is. And I need you to not try to pre-spin whatever lands on your company's desk. Let them handle their side." She stared at me like I'd chosen a language she didn't speak on principle. "You're going to tell my job," she said again, as if saying the sentence differently might rearrange its danger. "I'm going to send the hotline dates and times," I said. "That's it, not adjectives, not anger." "You're willing to put me out of work to win at decency?" she said, grabbing for a theory that let me be a villain in a suit. "I'm willing to return a problem to its owner," I said. "I don't make HR policy. They do." She stood, which I recognized as the movement you make when you're about to hit an emotional wall and you want the impact in your legs instead of your face. "Okay," she said, "okay." Then, in the tone she uses when she's about to tell some manager to stop calling a write-up, coaching, because words mean things, she added, "I'll get my own lawyer." "I hope she's good," I said, and meant it. Good lawyers like Rebecca don't pour gasoline on your sadness and call it strategy. That night I slept at the Las Colinas, one bedroom, which had the comfort of a hotel room you've stayed in too long. I lay on the stiff couch listening to a neighbor's TV hum through the wall and the AC cough like a smoker, and kept thinking about how simple this would look from space. Two dots that had occupied the same coordinates moving apart by inches that feel like miles. The next day over lunch, I sent the compliance report. The portal was the same one half the companies in America use. Ethics Point or a Cousin Beige interface, drop-downs made by people who think shame should be a UX feature. Nature of concern, I selected conflict of interest. Individuals involved, I typed Amber's official name and title. For the other, Trevor Kane, Assistant Plant Manager, Irving, D.C. I attached the calendar screenshot with the personal info cropped, the Uber summaries with the addresses visible, the visa statement with our numbers blacked out, and the highlighted section of the handbook. In the details, I wrote words so clean they squeaked, I am reporting a potential violation of Section 4.2, Relationships and Conflicts of Interest. Employee Amber Ramirez, HR Coordinator, appears to be in a relationship with employee Trevor Kane, Assistant Plant Manager, whom she has supported in investigations, dates unspecified. Attached are receipts and calendar entries showing recurring after-hours meetings at off-site locations proximate to the Irving Distribution Center. I am choosing to remain anonymous. I am not seeking retaliation or a particular outcome. I only ask that this be assessed according to policy. I read it 3 times and took out everything that smelled like revenge and left everything that smelled like dates. Then I hit submit and let the portal swallow it into whatever inbox HR calls, "Don't get me sued." That evening, Amber texted that she wouldn't be home. "We're putting out a fire," she wrote. I stared at the words and had to laugh because life monetizes irony. At 9, she called. I let it ring out. At 9:05, she texted, "Can we meet tomorrow and go over bills? Nothing about us." Business voice. I replied with a time and a place, the coffee shop near White Rock Lake where no one who knows us ever goes. When she walked in, she looked like sleep had been expensive. Her hair was pulled into a knot that said functional instead of intentional. She sat and didn't order anything and said, "They called me into a meeting with compliance today." For a moment, I thought she might be grateful I'd used the clean way. Then she added, "They asked if I wanted to disclose anything, like a relationship. I told them I do not have anything to disclose." How did it feel to say that out loud, I asked, not as a gotcha, as a man cataloging malfunction. She rolled her eyes like I'd asked her whether water was wet. "If I disclose, I'm barred from my roll call. You know they'll take me off every decision that matters. Did you think about that before you sent your little packet?" "I thought about your role all week," I said. "I thought about all the people who sit across from you when they're scared, believing you live under the same rules you recite to them. I did think about that." She deflated a little then. That was the first time I saw regret that wasn't performative. "They're putting me on leave while they look into it," she said, voice going small and unadorned. "I'm not fired. Not yet." She paused. Trevor told them we're friends." "Are you?" I asked. "Were," she said, then corrected herself, a tiny thing that made my chest go tight and then looser. "Are," she repeated, stubborn and doomed. "We split the bills like coworkers in a cubicle. Rent until the end of the month. Utilities? Insurance? We set a date for the first mediation 3 Thursdays out. She looked at each number like it was proof we used to be a team and the list would conjure us back. I kept my face kind and neutral and not helpful. When she stood to leave, she hovered, the way people do when they're choosing whether to hug a person they used to kiss. "Do you hate me?" she said, as if the word hate would give her a nobler narrative than the flat one, consequence. "I don't hate you," I said. "I hate that you thought the policy was for other people. I hate that you asked me to be a house you slept in while you went out to another address. I hate how good at this I've gotten." She nodded, absorbing the blows like she was counting them for a report. "He's not worth this," she said quietly, which told me Amber still believed there was a scale where a person might be worth violating policy and vows. "Neither am I." "You were," I said. "You were worth my best self. I wish she'd wanted it." After she left, I sat there with a paper cup gone cold and a playlist of couples having ordinary days playing around me, and I felt 60 instead of 41. I paid and tipped too much and went back to the apartment to pack the rest of my shirts. The compliance email arrived 2 days later addressed to Concerned Party, which is corporate for "We promise we don't log IP addresses on these forms. We have received your report and initiated a review. We appreciate your bringing this matter to our attention. No details, no timeline. Policies move like glaciers until they move like avalanches." One night, a week before mediation, I saw the light from our old balcony spilling onto the street, and I did the stupid thing and parked across from it for a few minutes like a ghost haunting his own life. The sliding door opened. Amber stepped out, phone to her ear, pacing the way she does when she's trying to sound like she owns the situation. I couldn't hear her, didn't want to. She leaned on the rail, pressed her forehead to her forearm, and I watched her breathe like someone trying not to cry while on the phone with a person who will weaponize tears. It didn't make me want to save her, it made me want to keep going. Mediation day came wrapped in that Houston and Dallas humidity that makes your shirt stick before you hit the lobby. Rebecca sat next to me with a yellow pad and a pen that looked like she collects them. Amber came with a lawyer who wore a floral dress and a posture like a ballet teacher, pretty and punishing. The mediator was a man in his 60s who had the face of a pastor and the voice of a CPA. "We're here to divide a life without creating new injuries," he said, and for the first time in weeks the phrase, "without creating new injuries," felt like someone had opened a window. We did opening statements. Her lawyer tried to mention the anonymous complaint as if I'd thrown a match. Rebecca cut it off with a newscaster's smile. "Compliance matters are between Ms. Ramirez and her employer and are not at issue in this mediation." We broke into separate rooms where the mediator brought us offers like a waiter delivering courses you didn't order. The property list was short, the emotions were long. At lunch, I stepped into the hallway and checked my phone and saw a new email from an ethics investigator requesting additional dates. I typed them from memory while eating a protein bar that tasted like punishment. By 2, we had a framework. By 4, we had a draft. "We can finalize next week," Rebecca said, putting her pen away like she'd just taken the tower down in Jenga and everything had landed where she wanted. Amber walked past me without looking, the poise in place again. At the elevator, she stopped and turned. "We were boring," she said, and I understood that what she wanted to say was, "We were safe," and I mistook that for being dead. "We were steady," I said. "A lot of good lives are steady." The doors opened. She didn't get in. "I know," she said. "I just didn't want that to be the whole sentence." "It isn't. It's the clause before whatever comes next." The decree arrived in my inbox like any other PDF. No fanfare, no wax seal, no dramatic courier at the door. A file name with today's date, my name, her name, and the one word that makes a whole decade sound like paperwork. Before that final stamp, though, there were weeks that felt longer than the marriage itself. After the first mediation session, I fell into a rhythm I didn't know how to narrate to anyone. Wake at the Las Colinas, one bedroom to the sound of someone else's alarm through the wall. Make coffee with the tiny machine the landlord provided, the kind that tastes like compromise. Drive to the office, answer tickets, plan a switch maintenance window. Pretend I didn't become a person who knows exactly how to submit a compliance report without leaving thumbprints. In the evenings, I'd walk around the complex and watch strangers cook through their windows. A woman in scrubs standing in a blue kitchen stirring something with her whole body. A man in gym shorts shaking a pan like he'd been taught by someone who loved him. At least twice a week, my car tried to turn toward the old place out of muscle memory, and I had to talk to myself like I talked to a junior engineer who's about to type reboot in production. Hands off. Breathe. Back away. Amber and I didn't speak for 4 days after mediation day. On the 5th, her name lit my phone while I was in the server room replacing a fan and a top-of-rack switch. I let it go to voicemail, then stood in that cold, white noise air and listened. "They want to meet again," she said. "No greeting, just the straight line of consequences. Compliance, they say it's fact-finding. I don't know what they know." A soft swallow. "I know what they know. I'm asking if there's anything they'll email. I'm asking if there's anything they'll email you that you can tell me about." It was the kind of ask people make when they want to convert breakup entropy into leverage. I stood there with a fan assembly in my hands and said the sentence I had practiced for that exact temptation. "I can't be your source," I said into voicemail. "You have your lawyer, I have mine. We keep our lanes." Her reply landed 2 hours later. Text this time, short enough to sting. "I hope you enjoy this, Cole. It must feel very righteous." I stared at the sentence, at the way she had turned my restraint into theater. I typed and erased 3 things, then landed on the only one that didn't feed the fire. I don't. I want us both alive on the other side. That's it. Compliance sent me a follow-up the next morning that read like a form with the serial numbers filed off. "Could you confirm whether the attached receipts correspond to the dates in question? Could you provide any additional documentation? Would you be available for a brief call? Anonymous participation can be accommodated via a third-party number." I told Rebecca, and she replied within minutes. You can confirm what's already documented. Do not speculate. No call. Let the paper speak. No call. Let the paper speak. So I did the least cinematic thing possible. I sent them a 2-sentence email. Yes, the receipts correspond. The attached calendar screenshots cover the same blocks. No adjectives, no narrative. It felt like walking past a stranger you once knew and not touching their sleeve. The dog came from a rescue in Carrollton because the apartment had started to feel like a hotel designed by people who don't believe in leaving dented things on shelves. He was a black and tan mutt with eyebrows that made him look perpetually worried, and a name the shelter had given him that didn't fit Captain. I renamed him Bite because I didn't want an animal who had already been a captain somewhere else. He looked at me like renaming him was the first honest thing anyone had done all week. We learned each other's routes, down the stairs, left at the laundry room, around the pool where people pretended to laugh, across the street to the little park that wasn't really a park, just a patch of grass with a tree trying hard. On a Thursday night, a week before the second mediation, I was halfway through an episode of a show I wasn't really watching when my phone buzzed. It was Elise, one of our couple friends, someone who thinks checking in is an act of service and a sport. We hadn't told anyone the truth. We'd given the beige explanation that makes mutual friends nod and change the subject. I'm hearing things, her text said. People talk. If you need me to set the record straight, tell me what the record is. I called her because some things shouldn't be typed. We're keeping it private, I said. I know that's unsatisfying for people who like tidy narratives. I don't like tidy, she said, which was only half true. But I like you. And I like Amber even if she's behaving like a person who thinks rules are cute. She said you were controlling, that you were going to weaponize HRs because you can't stand her having autonomy. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling, at the little swirl marks from a painter who had given up halfway through a circle. I'm not going to litigate our fight in the group chat, I said. If you want a sentence you can repeat without lying, say this. Cole chose mediation. He's not speaking badly of her, they're handling it. Okay, she said, the word an exhale and a pledge, but if you need me to pull receipts, I will. I have enough receipts, I said, and we both sat in that truth until it stopped needing words. I ran into Trevor exactly once because Dallas is big until it's the size of your life. It was at a Starbucks near the Irving Distribution Center where I sometimes stop for coffee before a field visit. I was standing by the pickup counter waiting for a latte that would taste like a good decision when I noticed a man at a table by the window keep not looking at me. The not looking you do when you know someone from the wrong story. He had a beard like he'd grown it to answer a question no one had asked and a posture that said he used to be good at sports, do good at faro. Our eyes met, bounced off each other, met again. You're Cole, he said, because men like him always go first when they think they can make that fact a weapon. I am, I said, and you're Trevor. He made a face that wanted to be a grin but was really an inventory. She told me about you, he said, and I couldn't help it, I laughed. I'm sure she did, I said. I hope it included section 4.2 of your handbook. He flinched, the tiniest tell, and for a second I saw him not as an antagonist but as a man who had gotten addicted to the exact same mix of secrecy and validation Amber had. It's not like that, he said, and I held up a hand. It is exactly like that, I said, and it's none of my business anymore. Good luck. I took my coffee and walked out without looking back because some doors you close by not touching them. Second mediation was less theatrical than the first. The list had shrunk. The numbers had gotten more specific. Amber's lawyer tried to make a case for a larger share of the joint savings due to her being temporarily limited in employment options. Rebecca listened, waited, and then said in a voice that could sell sanity, door to door, "That is a choice and a consequence, not a disability. We can account for short-term cash flow without pretending the sky is different color." We agreed to a 3-month window where I'd cover a slightly larger portion of rent while she sorted her job. It felt like charity and math in equal parts, which is how most decent compromises feel. In the hallway after we signed the updated draft, Amber stopped me. They put him on leave, she said abruptly, like she was flicking a card onto a table. Trevor, pending further review, I'm suspended. My lawyer says if I resign instead of letting them terminate me, I can control the story. I hope you do, I said. Control the story, I mean, for you. Do you ever wish we'd yelled? She asked, like maybe if we had broken plates she'd have access to a different set of emotions. Sometimes, I said. But yelling is a performance. I don't want to remember us as a show. She nodded. Then, with a tiny and terrible honesty, she added, "I told myself you were safe so long I mistook safe for small. I'm sorry." "Me too," I said, "and I meant it the way you mean it when the doctor tells you the thing is benign, but it still needs to be removed." We signed the final version of the settlement 2 weeks later. It included all the things Rebecca had promised it would. A clean division of the account we'd built together, a plan for the lease we'd end early without bankrupting either of us, a clause about not disparaging each other in public or to mutual friends because we were grown-ups, at least on paper. The decree came 4 business days after that, which is what life does when it wants to remind you it's a factory where your pain is just another widget. I took a day off work for myself and used it to do nothing that looked like healing from the outside. I drove Bite to White Rock Lake, and we sat on the grass while cyclists did their quiet rituals and a kid tried to skip a rock and learn the physics of disappointment. A guy about my age threw a tennis ball to a golden retriever who flopped into the water like joy was a job. I imagined the version of me that had stayed and swallowed and come home every night to a couch where the truth had been tucked behind a throw pillow, and I felt something like gratitude and grief sit down next to each other and pass me a sandwich. Late that afternoon, a number I didn't recognize called. I answered because curiosity is my worst habit after decency. "Mr. Ramirez," a woman's voice said, professional and kind. "This is Angela from Compliance. I wanted to let you know, as the reporting party, though you did not request updates, that the review has concluded. Appropriate corrective actions have been taken. We appreciate you bringing this matter to our attention." "Thank you," I said, and meant it in the smallest, most bureaucratic way possible. "We do not disclose specific actions for privacy reasons," she added, as if she could hear the unasked question. "But I want you to know the policy exists for a reason. It is not decorative." After I hung up, I thought about all the policies in my world that nobody reads until the outage, the way you tune your ear to quiet things when something matters. I thought about how Amber had recited for years the rules she broke for 6 months, and how easy it is to become the exception in your own head when you're tired of being ordinary. On a Sunday night in October, Elise and her husband invited me over for dinner like I was a neighbor who'd just moved in instead of a friend who had moved out. I almost said no, because being the only single person at a table where everyone else has a shorthand feels like a trick mirror. I brought a pie because my mom taught me you never show up empty-handed even when you feel empty. We ate, and we didn't talk about Amber much, and when we did, it was with that reverent tone you use when someone's not dead, but the life you had with them is. At one point, Elise put a hand on my forearm and said, "You did the least dramatic thing possible in a situation that begs for drama. I want to be like that when I grow up." "I'm older than you by 3 months," I said, and we both smiled like people who are learning to like the sound of their new lives. In November, my landlord offered to renew the short-term lease for another 6 months at a rate that felt like ransom. I signed for 3 and started looking. Not for a house. I didn't want my name on a mortgage that had been a plural noun for a decade, but for a place where my coffee wouldn't taste like a compromise. I found a building near Lower Greenville with a balcony that didn't face anyone else's living room. The first night there, Bite and I stood outside and listened to a neighbor play a guitar in the key of trying. I thought about calling my dad and telling him the whole story, then decided to send him a picture of Bite instead with the caption, "Meet my new roommate." He replied with a thumbs up and the sentence, "Looks like he'll keep you honest." My dad is a man of few words, and all of them are this kind of useful. On what would have been our anniversary, I woke up at 5003 without an alarm and drove to a diner on Northwest Highway that makes pancakes that taste like they were engineered to absorb sorrow. I sat at the counter next to a woman in a postal uniform and a man who looked like he paints houses, and we all pretended our coffee was the only thing keeping us alive. Amber texted me at 9002. "Happy anniversary," she wrote, and then, because she could not help herself even in kindness, "Thank you for not blowing up my life." I stared at it for a minute, then typed, "We both lit the fuse." We both get to put it out in our own ways. I hope you're okay. I didn't add, and I hope you do better because she's not my homework anymore. December brought the quiet I had been building toward without knowing how to ask for it. No ER scenes, no surprise visits, no papers served in parking lots. Just a life that clicked when it turned on, and a dog who rested his head on my shin while I paid the internet bill. One night I sat on my new balcony in a hoodie and watched the sky decide whether to be purple or black. The city hummed its dumb, faithful hum. I thought about all the ways I could have made this uglier and chose not to. It didn't make me a saint. It made me a person who finally believed that not every story needs a villain to be true. A week before Christmas, compliance sent a final email that felt like punctuation. We have closed the case. Policy training will be updated for 2026. Thank you for reinforcing our culture of integrity. I didn't print it. I didn't forward it. I closed the tab and took Bite for a walk. Occasionally, when the air smells like cinnamon pine cones and poor decisions, I think about what would have happened if I'd chosen spectacle. If I'd shown up at Amber's office with a box of printed Uber receipts and a speech. If I'd told our friends everything and asked them to pick a side. I can see the views that kind of mess gets online. I can hear the comments from people who love justice in all caps. But when I picture it, my chest goes tight, and I see myself on a stage I never wanted to stand on, public and loud and permanently misquoted. I chose a hotline, a mediator, a lease, a dog. It cost me less than the show would have and gave me more room to breathe. The week the decree came through, I took Bite to the rescue again to drop off a bag of food and some blankets. A couple about our age was there looking at dogs, arguing gently about whether their life would allow it. The woman knelt to scratch Bite and said, "Is he good?" I almost said he saved me, then realized I didn't need to turn him into a metaphor to make our story useful. "He's steady," I said. "He'll walk with you. He won't ask you to be someone else to keep the pace." On the drive home, traffic on 75 did what it always does, and I let it. I turned off at a different exit than usual just to see what the city looked like from a new angle. It looked like itself, which was comforting. I went home to a place with my name on the lease, poured myself a glass of water, and watched the condensation make a ring on the table. No alarms, no red logs, just a system I could keep running because I knew where the boundaries were and I respected them. If you came here for a lesson, I don't have a parable. I have a policy that wasn't decorative, a series of small, boring choices that added up to a life I'm not ashamed to post pictures of. I have a woman I loved who made choices that made sense to her until they didn't, and a man she chose whose name I won't need to say again. I have a dog with anxious eyebrows and a walk route that keeps changing because we can. I have the knowledge that sometimes the loudest thing you can do is choose to be quiet on purpose. What would you do if you were in their shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories.